Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to a random video I decided to do because I really wanted to. Judging from your response to the Magus and Summoner playtest analyses, I thought it would be interesting to just do a super chill, almost follow-up video, even though it's only been like 4 days. There will probably be 2 videos like this one and another one coming out soon. We're gonna make a Magus today. This is going to be completely unscripted. I don't have anything planned, but we're going to be using this character sheet, and we are going to make a functioning level 1 Magus character. This is kind of similar to what I do on my Patreon, which you can find links for in the description, as well as the YouTube memberships. Also get access to these videos, but those ones are usually a little bit more obscure, silly, or cool ideas for builds. Whereas this one, we're just going to go through, and I'm going to make a Magus here. So let's go ahead and get started. I guess we don't need to look at the class quite yet. The first thing we need to decide on is our ancestry. And that's a tough idea. Because it always comes down to, do I want a min-max, or do I want a cool roleplay? And I'm kind of digging the idea of a gnome Magus. I don't know if that's weird. Like, elf Magus and human Magus are probably the 2 most common. You never would hear, oh, what about a halfling Magus? No, we're going halfling Magus straight up. Let's see. Halfling Magus straight. Bam. Alright, so we're going halfling. So let's go ahead and get those stats a-rolling. 6 base hit points. Apologies if things seem to load in a little bit slowly. That just seems to be how my computer likes to do things. We are small with a 25-foot movement speed. Small, 25 foot. We boost our dex and wisdom, and we lose strength. So dex, wisdom, minus in strength. Now that minus in strength might sound bad, but with the idea I've got, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I'm not going to be going over a lot of the roleplay stuff as far as like languages and other things like that. I'm mostly going to be focusing on the parts that have actual impact, mostly in combat. If there's some skill stuff here and there, I'll make mention of it. But for the most part, we're just going to be focusing on the main functionality of creating a Magus. So we have to pick a heritage for our halfling. Are we gutsy? Are we a hillock? Which will give us a little more survivability. Nomadic lets us speak more languages. Twilight. That's right. I think halflings and humans are the only ones that don't even have low light vision, which is crazy. So we could get low light vision. We could take, we could ignore difficult terrain. That actually sounds really useful for a Magus because positioning is everything for a Magus. So I think Wildwood is actually the way to go. So we're going to go ahead and be a Wildwood halfling, so that we can ignore, terrain. So if we scroll down here, we can put, Keen Eyes, which is just what gives them bonuses to seek, as well as ignore difficult forest terrain. Pretty good, as long as we're in that situation. We also have to pick a heritage feat here. Distracting Shadows lets us hide better. Halfling Lore. Halfling Luck is a lot of fun, which just lets you re-roll a check, I think, like once per day. Halfling Weapon... Ooh, hold up. Ooh, hold up. Hold on. I need to load up weapons. I need to check something here. I need to check something really fast. Does the halfling sling staff have reload? Does it need to be reloaded? Halfling sling... Oh, okay. It does have reload 1. Oh, it would be so cool, but I just don't think it's a viable choice because reload on a Magus is asking for trouble. Like... Being able to striking spell is already usually a 3-action activity, so this would limit you to every other turn, typically. I guess you could reload and cast it in, and then fire it off on your next turn, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of the reload. I think we're going to go... Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not going to go with the weapon familiarity. Sure Feet, Titan Slinger... I think we're going to go with the Unfettered Halfling. I should say, I think I'm going to be building a more of a ranged build, so Unfettered Halfling just makes us auto-crit succeed any escape check against a grapple condition or grapple effect that would try to grab us. So this is, if anything tries to lock us down, this just lets us get out really well. So we're going to go ahead and take Unfettered Halfling there. And then we'll move on to our backgrounds. Honestly... As far as our stats are concerned, I want something. We do need an intelligence boost because we're going to get a dexterity boost from our class anyway. So I think we should be taking an intelligence background. Again, normally I would be doing a little bit more for roleplay, and I will try to pick one that does still work for roleplay. And this will just help me flesh out our little halfling Magus' story. I feel like I always go with fortune teller for an intelligence character because I'm going to try to avoid that. You know, we could take Martial Disciple, actually, because that gives a dex boost, and then we can also take an intelligence boost. So that's not a bad idea, especially because it would give us acrobatics or athletics. Actually, I think I like Street Urchin. I think I like the story of this halfling coming up from nothing and being forced to teach himself how to survive. I'm not actually fully sure of the flavor of where and how a Magus gets their powers, but I like the idea that this little nothing halfling street urchin made his way to what he is today. I think it is a similar training to a wizard because they still use the spell book. So I like to imagine that our little street urchin found like an old wizard's spell book. Maybe he got mugged and dropped it in the street and our little halfling just happened upon it. I love that idea. We're going to take it and run with it. So that's going to give us a boost. We're going to take that boost to dexterity, and the free boost is going to go to our intelligence. On top of that, we also get trained in crafting and... Oh, sorry, that's Tinker. We get trained in thievery and a city lore. So we'll take thievery. And then I always go with Absalom lore because if you're playing throughout the world of the Sea of Lost Omens, I always get this area wrong. I think it's the Sea of Lost Omens. No, the Inner Sea region. That's the one, which is where Pathfinder 2e mostly takes place. Absalom lore is always a good pick because Absalom is basically the capital. It's where the most people live. It's the most populated, and definitely most advanced city as well. For background, we went with Street Urchin. And finally, we get the Pickpocket skill feat. So that's not bad. We're going to have a high dexterity score. So having Pickpocket, I believe, just lets us lift small items without taking a penalty. I think the penalty might usually apply to light or heavier, and you can usually only pickpocket negligible, but I think with pickpocket you can pickpocket light with no penalty. I could be wrong. I just don't feel like looking it up, because otherwise this video will be 3 hours long. So now we get to move on to the Magus, and like I said, we're going to be boosting our dexterity with our class bonus, and then with our 4 final boosts, we're going to be bumping that dex up to 18, intelligence up to 14. Did I ever apply the bonus from Halfling? Hold on, revert. Dex wisdom. Dex intelligence. Dex. Yeah, I totally never did. Holy cow, I'm an idiot. So I never applied our free boost to intelligence from our ancestry, and now we're gonna apply our 4 free boosts for an 18 dex, a 16 intelligence, and let's go 12 constitution. Growing up as a street urchin, I don't think he would be very charismatic, so we're going to go with increased wisdom because the upgraded perception would make a lot more sense. And especially as a street urchin, I don't think he's chaotic by chance. I think he might be true neutral. He could even be neutral good. Because, I mean, even the way I explained the backstory, I don't think he stole this wizard's spellbook. I think he found it and kept it because he didn't know who it belonged to. So I'm going to go with neutral good. We do get, I believe, 10 hit points. Only 8 from the Magus. Okay, so 8 plus 1 from Constitution. So we only have 15 hit points. We are very squishy. As a Magus, we are expert in Fortitude and Will, and then trained in Reflex and Perception. That's totally fine because we have a high Dexterity score and a decent Wisdom score to offset that. Trained in Arcana and a bunch of skills, 2 plus Intelligence, so we get 7 skills after Arcana. No Nat Ones will return after a very special message. Hi, my name is No Nat. You know, every day hundreds of people watch these videos. But did you know that almost 60% of them aren't even subscribed? Even less smash that like button. Please. Help make the world a better place. Do your part. And now, back to your regularly scheduled content. So we're going to go ahead and we should really play to our strengths here. Definitely stealth, so 5 more. Probably medicine to learn, because he probably learned how to survive off of himself. Let's do crafting, acrobatics, 2 more. We'll give, obviously, definitely survival and society for living on his own in the middle of the city without a place to call home, just surviving in society. I like that. I like that. It's a nice set of skills for our boy or girl. I'm not actually sure. Trained in simple martial unarmed. It's great. Trained in light, medium, and unarmored. Cool. So that is ancestry, that is background, that is initial proficiencies. Arcane spellcasting. I always do the spells last when I make a character, so we'll pick our spells last. So let's go ahead and move on. We do have the Magus potency battle spell, so I should definitely go write that down. I don't know if that's the feature or not. I don't think that's the feature. But down here, we will just write, we have 1 focus point, Magus potency, and normally I'd write down what that does and everything, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to leave it as that. We have striking spells, so if you're the kind of person who likes to fill in their actions, you absolutely can. I usually commit them to memory, especially something like striking spell, where confusing at first, once you understand it, it's really simple, where you just, you spend a free action, the next time you cast a spell, it casts into your weapon, and then the next time you strike with that weapon before the end of your next turn, the spell also goes off when you hit, provided with an additional spell attack roll at the same multiple attack penalty. And now for the fun part. Our Magus synthesis. I'm sure you've pretty much already guessed what we're going with based on our stats and the way I've built this character, but we are 100% going with the Shooting Star Magus, which allows us to put Striking Spell into ranged or thrown weapons. That is pretty much all it does, and we have to remember that the ranged attack cannot have a longer reach than the spell itself, otherwise the spell will not go off. So we are going to be taking the Shooting Star Synthesis. And yeah, our other feature will probably just be Battle Spell. Our other feature is Striking Spell. What am I saying? That's the feature. We sadly don't get a first level feat, but let's go ahead and we're going to buy some weapons. We're going to buy some armor. I'm not going to worry about survival gear or anything like that. And then we will do spells and we'll be done here. So as for a melee weapon, there's a lot of choices, honestly, and we are trained with Martial. So I think a cheap Martial that would, fit his character would be good. We obviously want something finesse, due to our high dex and low strength, but ideally we're never going to be attacking in melee because we take a -1 to our damage due to that 8 strength stat. So as far as martial weapons are concerned, we don't have a lot of finesse choices. Let's see, we have the rapier, which is classic. I kind of like the star knife, could be cool. Ooh, and the star knife can be thrown, which means in a worst case scenario, if the enemy starts to run, we can striking spell into our star knife and fling that. The alternative would just be daggers, which we could have multiple daggers. That's a 10-foot thrown. Is the star knife 20-foot thrown? Star knife is 20-foot thrown. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and give him a star knife. And it's such a specific weapon, too. I think they have a picture of the star knife, which I really, really dig. The art in these books has always been the best. I know they have a clan dagger. Do they have a star knife? I think they have a star... Yeah, I think that's the star knife right there. Which is really cool. Yeah, so we can do either piercing or slashing, which is why it has versatile slashing. That's such a cool... It's basically just a giant shuriken, which I love. It's still only a D4 of damage, but this is really good for our build. It's finesse, so we can attack with our dex modifier, and if they run away, we can throw it, also using our dex modifier, and if we throw it, we can still striking spell with it. So that's some really cool stuff. It also has Deadly D6, so if we happen to crit with this thing, even on a thrown attack, we add a D6 on top of our D4 and our spell attack. So this thing is amazing. It's even agile, so if we want to attack multiple times in one turn, it's a slightly lower penalty. That's overall a great weapon for us. We can go over here, we can just copy all of the... No, Trident, you're not our weapon. Although a Trident Magus would also be really freaking rad. We're trained in this. It uses Dexterity, which pops us... Oh, not for damage. It uses Dexterity to hit, which brings us way up to a +7, which is as good as you can get unless you're a fighter, and I hate you. And then the big one is the ranged weapon that we will need to decide on here. I'm almost guaranteed it's going to be a bow. In fact, I'm pretty sure it will be a bow, because we have the star knife for close to mid-range throwing, so we should take something with some range. The longbow is good, although it does come with the volley feature, which is not good. If they're within 30 feet, we take a penalty. So short bow might be better, that way we're mid-range, unless we really plan to hang back, which might be the play. We have very low health, but you know what? Let's do spells first, and when we analyze our spell list, we'll pick a weapon. Because if all of our spells cap out at 60 feet away, the longbow is meaningless. So let's jump into our spells. We can get 8 cantrips and 4 first level spells. So starting off with the cantrips, let's see. We obviously want a lot of offensive cantrips, and especially useful. The more I've played Pathfinder 2e, the more I've learned that having different types of damage at your disposal, maybe not in the early levels, but as you grow, is vital. So I think we want to take Acid Splash, Electric Arc, Ray of Frost, and Produce Flame. I think we want access to all 4 of those. So now it's important to note about some of these, like Acid Splash has a range of 30 feet. So if we were to use that with Striking Spell, we could not use that with the longbow without also suffering from the longbow's volley penalty for being within 30 feet. So that's not the greatest combo with the longbow. So I am starting to lean on the short bow. What about the other ones like Produce Flame? Produce Flame is also 30 feet. Again, really kind of pointing me in the direction of that short bow, which can fire from 30 feet with no issue. I believe Electric Arc is the same way at 30 feet. It is 30 feet. Now, I think Ray of Frost might be 120. Ray of Frost is 120. So we could be firing ice arrows from 100 feet away with the longbow, which is kind of rad. Kind of reminds me of Legend of Zelda with the ice arrows. So that's pretty cool. And if you critically hit with the spell, then you're inflicting slow from a distance. I really do dig that. But I guess the thing is, that is 1 out of the 4 offensive cantrips. The other one I'm worth thinking about, but I don't know if we even want it, is Telekinetic Projectile. It's a great one. Also 30 feet, so actually not too big a deal. I think our Magus wants to focus on damage diversity. A lot of people just pick one damage type and try to do as much as they can with it. I think the beauty of the Magus, similar to an Alchemist, is that they can attack and deal fire, or acid, or ice, or electric damage. So we're going to skip on Telekinetic Projectile. Even though it does have the highest damage die of a cantrip, we're going to pass on that. And I do believe I have been sold on the short bow versus the long bow. Like, yeah, the long range ice arrows are cool, but short bow will work best with our cantrips the way that we are going to be playing it. So let's go ahead and write down our short bow up here. So under short bow, I believe it's also going to be a +7 to hit, just because, again, that's the way it works. I believe a short bow deals 1d6 with a bunch of traits, and by a bunch I mean 1. 1d6 piercing at deadly d10 though, so if that short bow critically hits, that's not bad damage. Deadly d10 right there, fantastic. It's piercing damage, and honestly, with a lot of these short bow attacks, we're going to be dealing 1d6 plus 1d4 plus intelligence, as long as both rolls work out in our favor, of course, which is the biggest drawback of the Magus. You sort of have to, they're at the same multiple attack penalty, but you have to make 2 separate attacks, and the second one can only be made if you land the first one. Compare that to something like the Monk's Flurry of Blows, which can just attack twice, even if the first one misses. But you have to think about that. The Monk's second attack is at a multiple attack penalty. So we're sort of trading off that same multiple attack penalty, but you have to hit first. So I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. I think it's a cool way to play. It's a range increment of 60 feet. As for the rest of the cantrips, there's nothing here that would absolutely synergize with our striking spell. So I think at this point we would just take support. You know, really take anything you want. I think I would personally take... Actually, Tanglefoot would be really cool. Tanglefoot at a range with our bow, that almost makes Tanglefoot deal damage, albeit for an extra action. I like that. So I think I would take Tanglefoot. I always take Message. Message is one of my favorite spells in role-playing games, because it allows for some very, very clutch synergy and strategy with your teammates without letting the enemies know. Chill Touch is good as well, but again, the problem with Chill Touch on this build is that Chill Touch, I believe, is a touch spell? I could actually be wrong. Yeah, okay, it's a touch spell, so we would not be able to deliver Chill Touch with a bow due to the way the Shooting Star synthesis works. So, yeah, really, these are the 4 I'd be taking with me into almost every encounter whenever I prepare. Maybe bring Tanglefoot, but just having the diversity of 4 different damage types on hand is phenomenal. Also, I never really pointed it out, but we do have our intelligence as our spell attack and spell DC, giving us these numbers. So our spell attacks are only 1 less accurate, for now, than our physical attacks. Unfortunately, once we start getting potency runes, the physical attack will be getting more accurate than the spell attacks. As for first level spells, there's a lot to pick from, and I'm not totally sure which ones would be best for us. There's a surprisingly low number of level 1 damaging spells. There's definitely a good number. But one that could be really cool is Ray of Enfeeblement. Hold up. Oh, really? It's only at 30 feet? We have the short bow, so it could work. Think about this. Think about if this was just a feature a class had. For 3 actions, you make a ranged strike for 1d6, and the chance to make the foe enfeebled too. That's really good. I think that's worth taking just for that. That just reduces all of an enemy's physical damage by 2. That's insane. And honestly, if they're a physical attacker as well, it reduces their accuracy. They get a -2 to their attack roll so long as they're enfeebled. That's gross. On a freaking ranged bow attack? I love that. Maguses have this really unique playstyle that a lot of people haven't been thinking about, which they can take those condition-based spells like Ray of Enfeeblement and make them do damage on top of it. A lot of people don't take these spells because they don't do damage, and as the spellcaster, you'd say, okay, on my turn, I move and cast Ray of Enfeeblement. Cool, he's enfeebled. My turn's over. But now as the Magus, you can say, okay, on my turn, I striking spell with Ray of Enfeeblement, make my bow strike, which deals 1d6, potentially 1d6 plus 1d10 deadly, and can inflict enfeebled. And if you crit with that bow strike, then they automatically treat their saving throw as 1 worse, making it very possible for them to critically fail and become enfeebled 3. The Magus has a ton of condition support and use for these spells that would otherwise seem to be not a waste of time for a spellcaster, but they just become so much more efficient. Another great one, if you're so inclined, and probably one that I would take, is Magic Missile. If you hate the fact that you have to make a second roll after your physical attack, Magic Missile is guaranteed damage. You can even spend your entire first turn using the 3-action version of Magic Missile, charge it up into your weapon, and on your following turn, So from here, like the cantrips, it's totally up to you. If you want to go for more damage, take something like Spider Sting. Unfortunately, some things like Burning Hands, and unfortunately all of the first level spells in the APG, you cannot use those with striking spells as they don't target a creature. Anything that targets an area or a burst sadly cannot be used with striking spell because the actual text is, if your next action is to cast a spell that can target one creature or object. So this really, really sadly means you cannot use it with Fireball. Because Fireball does not target a creature, it is a 20-foot burst. So big sad, big letdown on that front. But really, what you pick is totally your call. You could just take Magic Weapon just to buff up your bow. Like, honestly, yeah, there's the focus spell that allows Maguses to bump up their weapon with +1 without the striking, which in my opinion, kinda lame. But yeah, there's so much good stuff. You can just take some... That's the big thing about the Magus. You don't have to use striking spell. You can still take spells to cast normally. And that means you can still take Burning Hands. You can still take Sleep. Even though they're cast in an area, you just won't cast those using your striking spell. Hell, you never have to use anything besides cantrips with your striking spell to be effective. Your intelligence is still almost as high as a wizard's. It is -1 more, which will come to bite you at times. You will miss armor classes by 1 point. But you can still do it. You're not that far behind. And once you reach level 5, you will be on par with a wizard after your first ability increase. So there's so much you can do with a Magus. Granted, you only have 2 spell slots, and yes, that is incredibly limiting, but the options are there. True Strike has some cool opportunities, and I think I would actually take that. Because it would be both of your spells. Oh, wait, actually, I need to check something. Okay, yeah, there's nothing here that says anything about casting another spell, disabling your striking spell. So what you can do, like with this build specifically, I think one of my big combos would probably be, on one turn, stock up all the 3-action version of Magic Missile into my bow. And so that is 3d4 plus 3 guaranteed damage so long as I land my physical strike, and then on the following turn, get into position with a move action, cast True Strike for 1 action, and then I get advantage on that big hit to guarantee that explosion of 1d6 plus 3d4 plus 3. Is it slow? Yes. Is it badass? Hell yes! You could even set the same thing up with Ray of Enfeeblement to really double down on that opportunity to critically hit, you know? There's so much you can do that I think True Strike, while taking your other spell slot, does have its moments, and I like it. And like I said, I love cantrips with striking spell. That's what I would usually be using it with. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our little halfling Magus. Oh, I never gave him armor. I guess we'd probably just give him... He doesn't have a lot of strength. We would actually have to give him leather armor, because anything else would be giving us a penalty. So let's go ahead and just make sure we have all the information for that. Not even leather, padded armor. Woof. I forgot about that. That's okay. That's okay. We are squishy, and we know that. That actually limits us to 3 and gives us a 1 bonus from item bonus, correct? 1 item bonus, dex cap of 3. It does say you need 10 strength, but it doesn't inflict any penalty, which is weird that there's even a requirement there. But we still have an AC of 17 at 1. Not amazing, but not completely worthless. Now comes the very important part, y'all. You're playing the character. What's their name? Tell me, what's our little Magus halfling's name? I want you to tell me their name, their backstory. Go as deep as you want. No matter what you want to do with this halfling, go for it. And at the beginning of the future Make a Summoner video, I will shout out my favorite comment on the character. So if you want to go deep, make a backstory, tell us all about the halfling street urchin Magus, who happens to be Wildwood, so maybe he got lost in a city and couldn't find his way out. Completely open to you. Make it yourself, make it your own. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.